Live radio, everybody. Welcome to the Dennis Miller Show. Our fearless leader, Dennis Miller, is in his studio, but there's some kind of wacky technical problem where we can't hear him. So I'll tell you a little bit about this hour, and then we'll take a break pretty early, and we'll get it all hammered out. But a little later this hour, Jed Babin will tell Dennis about his new book, The BDS War Against Israel, the Orwellian campaign to destroy Israel through the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. And I'm glad personally that Jed's on to talk about it because there were a lot of words in that title that I would probably have to look up. Oddly enough, Orwellian is the only one that I really know. We're also going to take a lot of your phone calls at 866-509-RANT. You know that number, 866-509-7268. That's always our number. Whether Dennis is here, whether I'm here, whether our friend Larry O'Connor's here, or really if anybody's here, we love to have you guys call in. So that number, 866-509-RANT. Let's get to the soup of the day, which is spicy corn chowder with a little crab in that chowder. It's brought to you by our friends at Wix. At Wix.com, you can create your own professional and stunning website. It's simple, no coding is needed, and it's free. Get your business online today at Wix.com. So, as I mentioned, we're having a little technical problem with Dennis. We want to get him back to you as quickly as possible. And while I appreciate you listening and hearing me talk, I'm going to take the break super early right now. And hopefully, when we continue, Dennis Miller on The Dennis Miller Show.
Once in a while, a breakthrough product comes along and changes the way we live. If you want to help keep your skin looking younger, you need to know about HelioCare. The sun can do pretty terrible things to your skin. Sun damage can happen even on a cloudy day or overcast days. Just walking to the mailbox or driving every day can add up to older-looking skin. Now, HelioCare is a daily-use dietary supplement. It contains PLE, which you may have heard about on TV, and you take it like a multivitamin. Then HelioCare's antioxidant formula helps your skin protect itself from the aging effects of the sun, and this is year-round. That's why thousands of dermatologists have requested samples of HelioCare for their patients. That should tell you something right there. If you're ever worried about sun damage, if your family has a history of sun-related skin problems, you need to start taking HelioCare. Now, buy a 2-month supply of HelioCare at Walgreens and Rite Aid in the vitamin aisle. Look for the yellow and black box, HelioCare.com. Show. Billy O'Reilly and I in Rapid City, July 25th, Fargo, July 26th. For more information, go to DennisMillerRadio.com and click on Dennis Live. I'll be performing solo in Reno this Friday, Scottsdale on Saturday. For more information, go once again to DennisMillerRadio.com. And just reading about the USA-Ghana rating, 7.0 overnight for ESPN, which is, I think, their biggest ever. So congrats. I can't say it's an exciting game, but it was thrilling. It's like an event. I really feel like I'm watching an event. And having just been in Sao Paulo in the last half year and kind of, albeit for a day, I at least feel like I have an olfactory remembrance of an evening there and what it feels like when there's rain in the air. So I have that going for me, a little subtextual enjoyment. And, God bless them. They look great. I don't know if Bradley is our best player. And like I said, I don't follow it that much. If that's one of the people who replaced Landon Donovan, over the years as I've watched, Landon Donovan seemed to, I can't say great. I don't know enough about the game, but he certainly seemed to be feisty and our best player. And the Bradley guy did not look all that good to me. But 2-1, and Ghana looked pretty good, so good for them, good for Klinsmann. And I watched the whole thing, but I like I said, you can watch the whole thing and not even be there all the time because not everything happens. But I guess the potential for it to happen is what keeps you there, but it's still the potential doesn't happen. So anyway, it's still not my favorite sport. To me, it seems like long, drawn-out, less interesting hockey. But the event, the scale of it is indeed exhilarating. And Planet Football, go! 866-509-7268, our phone number, and we go to Michael in Maryland. Hey, Mike.
Dennis, how are you? Listening to you on WTHU 1450 AM here, and they picked you up a couple of months ago. I've never heard your show, and I'm just loving listening to you every day.
Thank you. That's nice of you, Mike.
Hey, we're in the midst of a kind of a historic local election here. Primary is 2 days away, and the thing I wanted to hear your comments on were this just polarization that seems to have developed over the past 20 or 30 years, where everybody is so far apart on their candidates and the issues and all that. And at the end of the day, after we've decided it at the polls, the vitriol continues. Everybody continues to harp on each other. The news media goes after the candidate that they didn't want elected, and the Facebook, and it just, it used to be when we finally elected representatives, even at a local level here, when it was all said and done and the dust settled, everybody pitched in as neighbors and tried to support their government. It doesn't happen anymore.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. That's not a question. And it's going to get more rancorous, you realize. Just let me ask you this. People always say, well, it's exactly equal. I don't think it is. I think it's more from the left. Do you think, let's say for just topic of this conversation, let's take one thing on each side and see how it's treated. Do you think that Sarah Palin is not as smart as Nancy Pelosi, for instance? You've seen both of them in public. I'm not saying that either one of them are, I'm not trying to be mean, but I don't think Palin even posits herself as a latter-day Margaret Thatcher. But do you think either one of them are absolutely brilliant?
No, I don't think they're absolutely brilliant.
Well, what has the treatment been? Okay, just real quickly, and I'll get out of the way. It's just for the purposes of the conversation. Who got treated worse?
Oh, absolutely, Palin. I mean, she was. Yeah, I mean, it was.
So I would say it's mostly their fault. They're mean on the left, and it's only going to get meaner. And unfortunately, when some of these things start to crater, like Obamacare, you saw during the rollout how mean that got. Global warming starting to crater a little. They're going to double down. You got to watch what you say in public. I've had some cards printed up that say global warming is the single greatest issue facing the world. Just hand them out if you can't put a straight face on, which I can't. Whenever anybody goes on about it, just hand them a card and nod. But you got to watch yourself with global warming. It's going to start cratering the data, and they're going to get really pissed about it. So, like I said, use your head out there. But you hit the nail on the head. It isn't going back to, what did you say, neighbors pitching in together? It isn't.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dennis, I appreciate you taking my call, and keep up the great work. We love you here in Maryland.
All right, thank you. Unless somebody can call and tell me how that's, say, for instance, Bill Maher, and I don't know, he's on one side. Well, he's my friend, so I shouldn't use him as an example. But how are people like Nancy Pelosi and, I don't know, one of these Tea Party people going to come together, like an 80-year-old woman who just stood out there and said she's afraid for her country. She'd despair. She'll never even meet with them. So I'd love to hear somebody paint a scenario where we come together, because I don't see it. And I believe that this president has introduced a degree of rancor and envy in the culture that will, in my eyes, be his legacy. I know he'll be thought of as a great, great man. But for me, I've never seen the country more envious of other people's possessions or more rancorous with each other. I know he has nothing to do with that. That's another game I have to play now for the first time in history. The president has nothing to do with anything. It's just so bizarre to me. Let's go to Joe in Florida. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Dennis, wanted to make a comment on the Pope encouraging people to have more kids. It kind of cracked me up. It's kind of like Obama telling his kids not to lie. I mean, it's probably a good idea, but come on, set an example.
Well, I think if Chris Hitchens was alive, he would seize on that and run with it. I love kids, though, but whatever the Pope wants to say. To me, the Pope seems like a nice man, but at the end of the day, these guys, queens, popes, presidents, they're all just people to me. Honest to God, they're people who at some point have gotten a huge visible job. Thank you, Joe, in Florida. So I do still have that in my head that the Pope is a man who got a great job. I like him so far because he seems humble and he seems uncomfortable with all the trappings. And I see that he once again is telling wealthy people to get some ethics and all that. But I would say, and like I said, I'm not being heretical here. The Catholic Church has so much money tied up in these buildings, and they should strip them down and start selling everything they have, because they're actually in the altruism business. I mean, nobody can put a gun to, well, I guess you can, to a businessman's head, and they'd probably do in some banana republics and say, I want your money. But man, the Pope, God would understand. All those gold crucifixes, all those ornate sconces, all the marble, man, all of it should be broken down across the world and substituted with, buildings by the general or Quonset huts or tents. That would be a good reboot for the Catholic Church. Take all those billions of dollars and try to give it to but watch yourself, man. If you give it, if the Pope went in, you think they wouldn't screw the Pope over in sub-Saharan Africa, some of these people? And I don't mean the people out in the dung huts who need it. I mean the people in government. Oh, man, they would bow at his feet and cash that check the moment he went up the tarmac. So, but I do think the Catholic Church should, under this Pope, go sackcloth, man. None of those vestments, none of that stuff. How much does that cost? Every time I see a bishop, he's got a ring on, like they won the cup. All that stuff. Smelt it down. Get rid of the elaborate thing. Go back to the person in sackcloth. And take that and put it as a down payment on some of this debt. That would be my thought. And I'm not saying that meanly. I like this Pope. He seems like a sweet man. I'm surprised he's not doing that. Because, quite frankly, overseeing the church, he's one of the richest of the one-percenters. And I'm surprised his guilt doesn't... What do we have a gentleman yesterday telling me that he needs hydrogen cars? And I said, well, go get one. And that seemed to be the last thing on his head. I remember thinking, my God, can you imagine how guilty you'd feel if you were driving a car around and you were talking about your kids and that? And I thought, God, how does he do that? How does he get up in the morning and do that? But people do it, and is to call you and say, well, let's get the government to insist on it. I said, well, why don't you do it? Let's go to Michelle in Indiana. Hey, Mitch, how are you?
Government let's go to Michelle in India. Hey, Mitch, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Are you there?
Yes, but, well, go ahead, Mitch.
I'm doing good. How are you?
Great.
I am very grateful for you and Mike Gallagher and Dave Hodges and Alex Jones. You guys are the dream team. I kid you not. You know what? I commend you full force because you know what? You guys are right on.
Well, listen, I don't know Andy Hodges, so I can't tell if that's a compliment or not. And I like Mike Gallagher. But isn't Alex Jones the guy who says that all these things are planted by the government, that they're the ones who shoot up Las Vegas cops in an effort to make him look bad? And if not, and once again, it's your call. You can say whatever you want, but I defer on that one. I'd rather not be associated, and I don't think I say anything on the show that would make you think of me as him. But go ahead.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mitch, thank you. Let's go to Matt in KC. Hey, Matt, how are you? Christian, do I have the right guy there? Isn't that guy?
Yeah, he's the guy. Yeah, he has this website, Infowars. He's very much. He doesn't trust any government. I think.
You sense a vibe between. I'm trying to do a comedy show.
Yeah, I think you're probably.
I don't know much about the topics.
You're probably on the same station as him where she lives. That's what I'm guessing because of the way that she rattled everybody off.
Well, I don't think the government shot those cops in Vegas.
Right.
And stuff. And there's been other ones where I've read and I said, really, that man can't mean that. That's sort of carnival barking.
Yeah, he had a really elaborate theory about the Boston Marathon bombing that he spent a lot of time putting out there.
I don't adhere to all those.
Yeah.
But thank you for if it was It was a nice compliment.
She meant well.
I have to distance myself from
Sure.
because I don't think anything like that. Matt and Casey. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Yes, sir. Hey, Dennis, how are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Hey, I just want to say congratulations on the Kings. Me and my friends stayed up and watched the entire game, and it was just a fantastic game, and I hope you had a chance to watch it. And I know I'm a day late because I forgot to listen to you yesterday, but I just wanted to call and congratulate you.
They give you a good, honest day's work, the Kings, and they seem like a great bunch of guys. So, yeah, I found that amazingly enjoyable to follow their watch. Now, I grew up in Pittsburgh, so that team's always in your hard drive, but they went out early, and it looked like from a lack of effort. So the Kings brought me great joy. Thank you, Matt and Casey.
Think of how many hours of free hockey you got because of all the overtime games, thanks to the Kings.
God, what a fun, great group of guys, man. And Daryl Sutter is one of my heroes. Really, a heroic man. In that isn't it nice to see Sutter and Popovich win these things and stay out of the way and give it to the players? The two good guys won this time through. It's not that there aren't other good guys, but those guys are really admirable men. And by the way, must give credit to LeBron James over the course of these playoffs and how he's grown. I know he has a lot of haters. Indeed, at one point he used to drive me crazy. I thought that decision to do a show called The Decision and taking my appreciable skills to South Beach was madness. But boy, he's turned into a late 20s man who's got wisdom. And as he sits there and fields those inane questions and lets reporters off the hook periodically with a nice smile, I thought, good for him. He's matured. 866-509-RANT. I have Mark in New Hampshire. Put Marky on for a second. Hey, Mark.
Shalom, aloha, Dennis.
Aloha, shalom to you. I've got to take this commercial break because it's, as they say, a hard break. People always say that, and they go, what is a hard break? You only have 2 times during an hour that things cut off on their own. Like, it has nothing to do with a guy hitting a switch. It just cuts off. And one of them's coming up at around 15 seconds, so I don't want to dish you. Can you hang on, and we'll do it on the other side?
I'll be back.
All right, Mark. Dennis Miller Show. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Dennis Miller Show. Taking your phone calls. We'll start with Regina in Chicago. Hey, Regina, how are you? Anybody there?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Regina, this is Dennis Miller.
Yes.
Would you like to talk on the radio today?
Sure would.
What can we
Go
do
ahead,
to
Regina.
evoke that conversation from you?
Oh, hello, Mr. Miller. How are you?
Go ahead and say
Let's see.
what's on your mind, Regina.
Settle down.
Mr. Miller, I have to say that, first of all, you give very sound advice about getting these people out of your head on the weekend and enjoying your family and your life. I think that's terrific advice. I enjoy your show tremendously. And I just heard you talking about the Catholic Church and them being 1%ers financially. And I guess that goes with anything that's the biggest. They have more of money, participants, whatever it is. My argument with that is the Catholic Church has been a 1%er in other ways too, in that they, by their sheer numbers and by the money that they have, the ability to send their priests and nuns and as missionaries to go out and help in all these other underdeveloped countries, underserved countries. And if you look at other churches, no matter what the denomination, there are churches that have 500,000 square foot churches that people attend. There are a lot of churches that have tons of money, and it just upsets me that everybody always picks on the Catholic Church, especially when we go to vote for a pope. People who aren't even Catholic, who have their 2 cents in about who the cardinal should be picking as pope for our church. So I understand they almost bring
Regina,
it on themselves with turning.
Well, you just when you're finished, leave a proper line of demarcation, and I'll talk back at you.
Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead. Have you said your piece?
Pretty much.
The Catholic Church has done some bad things in the last 30 years. I'm Catholic. I think they've gotten off the hook pretty well. You don't?
Well, I would say that if you want to talk about the Catholic priest scandal, sex abuse scandal,
molesting the boys. Well, before you go off, just let me say that not an unappreciable thing for a church. You understand? I mean, I don't ask much of a church. One thing I would say is the older men in the church, leaning on younger men in the church who are mere altar boys for sexual favors, and in a weird way using their strength against them to get it and then get their silence, a not unappreciable thing to come out of a house of worship.
I totally agree with you. But
all right, well then can you take a second, Regina, and just say, and maybe that's one that God wouldn't want me to put a butt on, because you rush through that to the butt, but I'm talking about older men molesting younger men, and a big pattern of it, and the church not really turning them over to the cops, but shifting them around, and in many ways bringing them back to the mothership for protective services. That's one that you can just say, yeah, I can see where they lost some respect there. That is horrible. Before you go right to the butt, because I think you sound like a true believer, and I think your God, Jesus, like I said, I was raised Catholic, would say, Regina, don't give him the butt there. Just stop there.
And I believe these people get into Boy Scouts, gym teachers, and everything else because it's a target-rich environment. And do they go into becoming a priest or a rabbi or whatever because it's a target-rich environment? Yes, it happens in every religion. And
all right.
Totally wrong. I'm totally with you. I'm just saying it's across.
Well, maybe some people fell off their belief in the Catholic Church when they heard that they were just moving these men back to the Vatican as opposed to putting them in prison. That's all I'm saying. I'm not as fond of the Catholic Church as you. I'm not unfond of it. I find myself going back into church. But like I said, they have a lot of money. I wish they'd start, quite frankly, stripping down some of their more ornate houses of worship and giving it back to people that they deem needy. And I'm glad that their priests seem to have at least debated, because they know they're under more scrutiny molesting young men. But there's some big problems there that makes everybody not a fan of the Catholic Church. And I don't think they're picked on as much as you think they are. I don't know. There's some things there to pick on, right?
Absolutely. And like I said,
right.
It's across the board with all religions, all churches. Same thing goes on. And I think the Catholic Church does its share fair of terrific things in helping out society. So
well, I think do you not think, while you seem comfortable in your knowledge that all other churches molest children, you seem as uncomfortable or as comfortable in the belief that none of them help the world. They probably a little bit of that from them, or is it just
they all have their sins and they all have their blessings. Mm-hmm. I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that you might not be hearing me say right, and it's probably me, that it seems like the Catholic Church is the one that always gets beat up over everything.
It doesn't seem that way to me. But I would agree with you in that Islam gets a bigger pass than anybody. So, that's the one I don't get. Is like, they do tee up a lot of churches and say there's this and that. But what if I told you that at this point in the Methodist Church, they had no, and maybe, I don't know, Methodists allowed to get married, or some of these churches where you're allowed to get married, there has not been as huge a scandal with sex between minors and majors as the Catholic Church. Unless it's out there and I don't hear it, and you know something I don't know when you say everybody does it. I haven't heard it with some of the churches. Have you? Has there been a big Lutheran scandal?
And I think that the Catholic Church wears its heart on its sleeve, and they're all about turning the other cheek and airing their dirty laundry, and others are better at keeping things more quiet,
Really?
bad or otherwise.
So you think the Catholic Church didn't really sit on any of this? Regina, you can just see that we disagree completely on this. And there's no right or wrong. I'm not going to try to get you to change your mind, but I would say you should think about the assertion that the Catholic Church was open and transparent about their indiscretions, and maybe read up on some of the things, cardinal law, stuff like that. Just read up and see. Maybe not, maybe. But thanks for the call, Regina. Okie dokie. I don't think they were as forthcoming. You know, I've heard these stories about some of these priests who got moved around like chess pieces, and then when there was nowhere else to move because they had done the deed, and many parishes were brought back to the Vatican. And I do think they came forward, I think after the one guy I read about 20 years of abuse. Jeez. Smart business is about maximizing your potential. Being able to communicate and collaborate in real time allows you to close deals faster, solve problems better, create new opportunities. That's why you need Citrix GoToMeeting. It's the best, most efficient way to meet with clients and customers from the convenience of your computer, smartphone, or tablet. We use it here at the show when I'm on the road, and I seem to be on the road a lot. I can travel and know that my team is with me wherever I go. With GoToMeeting, you can meet online as often as you like with anyone, anywhere in the world, share screens to review documents, view presentations together in real time, and use the built-in HD video conferencing feature to see each other face-to-face for those moments. Try GoToMeeting for free today to see what it can do for you. Visit GoToMeeting.com, click the Try It Free button for 30 days, use the promo code Dennis. That's GoToMeeting.com, promo code Dennis. I will agree, though, out of all the faiths in the world, I don't think Catholics has agreed as much as Christians, so I guess that's more of a, that's like macro and microeconomics, I think. In a macro sense, I see Christians getting it big time now, and I am always amazed at the pass that Islam gets. They are vouchsafed. Dennis Miller Show.
And the world's all right with me. Just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day.
Wow, doesn't get much groovier. Joining us now, American Spectator and Washington Examiner contributor Jed Babin. He's got a new book, The BDS War Against Israel. What is BDS as an acronym, you say, Dennis? The Orwellian Campaign to Destroy Israel Through the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions Movement. Jed, welcome back to the show.
Hey, it's great to be with you.
Simplify the title for us and explain BDS to the listeners, please.
Well, the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement seeks to strangle the Israeli economy, its culture, and really Israel as a nation by getting people to believe certain lies about Israel. It basically proceeds from Mao Zedong's idea that a lie repeated 100 times becomes the truth. So they're accusing Israel of being a racist country, an apartheid country. They're even accusing Israel of being based on, well, frankly, a Jewish law that promotes genocide and massacres, when none of this stuff is true. But it gets repeated again and again and again through an entire culture which is spreading around the world and, frankly, now taking root in the United States in terms of getting American citizens and American college students to believe this sort of thing. And what I'm trying to do with this book is to just say, wait a minute, folks, none of this stuff is true, and let's just look at the facts. And it's a very important message, I think, Dennis, because people don't understand this very much in America, and it's really not a message that's even gotten out very well. But it's a very big danger to one of our, well, frankly, our only Middle East ally. And unless we stand up for the truth, we as Americans, this kind of thing can really succeed in damaging Israel in a way that it may not recover.
Well, a couple thoughts, Jed. As I look at the population around me and often see people on the street, reporters asking young people questions, can I tell you the BDS war against Israel, the Orwellian campaign to destroy Israel through boycott, divestment, and sanctions movements is a title that many of them would really go up and not have an idea on around 4 elements of that. Secondly, the things I admire the most about the Jews is their indomitability and their realization that at the end of the day they stand alone in many times in history, and that's quite all right with them, especially with a guy named Bibi Netanyahu. Let's just take the diaspora for a second. I would say Obama not the most healthy choice for Israel, but in the power corridor of the Northeast, I'd say 75% of the Jews vote for him. So I think the people of Israel are going to have to circle the wagons here, and will do so rather adroitly.
Well, I think they will, and I think, frankly, we owe it to them to speak the truth, to, frankly, help them. And when we see people around the country, and you're right, I mean, the book's title is a little awkward, well, maybe more than a little, but it's trying to send out a message that, when college students particularly hear from all of these Palestinian groups and people who are supporting the Palestinians that, we're just supporting peace and love and freedom, that it's really not true. The Palestinians try to couch the BDS movement as promoting academic freedom. Well, they're doing that by trying to say people should not have any academic freedom insofar as having academic discourse with the Israelis. Mm-hmm. And that is the kind of thing that I'm trying to get people to realize.
Well, I find it admirable, Jed. I find it admirable. I'm hugely pro-Israel. I'm not of the faith, but I'm hugely pro-Israel. But I would ask you this question. If you went to a pied-à-terre party on Manhattan's Upper East Side that was populated almost 90% with rich Jewish people, and you went in and you realized that probably out of those 90% of the people there, 75% of that 90 vote for Barack Obama and will vote for Hillary Clinton, what would you say to them? Common sense is you sit at the ottoman across from the sofa with your cocktail to say to them, why are you doing this? You're the diaspora. What are you doing?
Well, I would try, and I don't go to those sorts of parties. But if
No, it was a complete hypothetical, Jed. I didn't mean later today. I meant as opposed to the title of the book. What would you lean in and say? What are you doing here? And explain why.
Well, I mean, the basic point here is that the Jewish community in America, you're absolutely right, is largely in thrall to the Democratic Party. It has been since FDR, and nothing changes. And quite frankly, I think a lot of American Jews would rather be petted by Barack Obama than stand up for what is really in America's best interest, far less Israel. So you see that, and I would say to them, you folks need to just sit back and look at some of these facts, because our ally, the only ally we really have in the Middle East, is being damaged by this. And if you look at the rest of the success that Barack Obama has had, i.e. none in Middle Eastern diplomacy or pretty much diplomacy anywhere else, you have to realize that maybe this guy's going about things the wrong way. And if you're telling me you're going to all vote for Hillary or somebody else who is just going to be another Obama clone, it seems to me that you're not living up to your duty as an American citizen, far less as a Jew. You're not living up to your duty as an American citizen to examine what is working and what is not and make your decisions accordingly. That's what I try to tell them.
And as you talk to these Jewish people at this hypothetical party, once again, I want to stress this is hypothetical, and you say to them, we have to support 2 Jewish people. You'd say we have to support our one ally in that region, Israel. Would you be bemused at the realization that you were talking to Jews and asking them to support Israel, or would you be consternated?
Well, probably more consternated than anything else, because, again, and I'm talking about the people, of whom I am a co-religionist. I'm a Jew, and I look at an awful lot of American Jews, and they're not interested in foreign policy. They're not interested in military affairs. They're not interested in national security. So it's a really tough row to hoe to get them to worry about Israel's national security, far less even America's national security. So,
well, listen, you must draw a sucker then, and I'm sorry I'm up against the break here, but you must draw a sucker from the fact that Netanyahu's at the helm. When it's go time, I think he doesn't even have to call the states anymore. And I remember once seeing a press release about somebody who'd been killed in their bed in Brazil like 30 years after Munich, and a press release from the State of Israel saying, know that our vigilance is perpetual. At this point, I think the last thing the Jews need in Israel is to figure out how to get the upper east side of Manhattan on their side. I think they have to realize they live in the craziest cul-de-sac in the world, and they can never, never let 6 million Jews be liquidated again by madmen. And they won't. And I draw a great sucker from that. We've been talking to Jed Babin, American Spectator, Washington Examiner, co-author of a new book, The BDS War Against Israel, the Orwellian Campaign to Destroy Israel Through Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions Movement. Thank you, Jed, for your time. Dennis Miller Show.